Okay, this is Michigan State superstar center Paul Davis was kind enough to join us this morning on Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Thanks for coming on, Paul.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, when you were at Rochester, you the 2002 that's your senior year,
Correct.
and Mr. Basketball against the competition that's for Mr. Basketball your senior year in high school. A lot of those guys ended up going to Michigan State. Calvin Tolbert was on that team of Mr. Basketball. Matt Trannon was a runner-up. Maurice Ager, Drew Namath, Drew Neitzel, Marquise Gray, Goran Sutan. All those guys were on the roster with you. Talk about the competition that's in the locker room, that's at practice and everything.
I mean, Michigan's a great state for high school, college basketball, and has produced a lot of good NBA guys too. The best thing is you kind of compete in high school against each other and AAU and all that stuff. So you know these guys going into college, and so when we had that locker room with all those guys that you mentioned, our chemistry was pretty easy to fall into, and I think it showed on the court because you have these great competitors, great players, and finally we're on the same team. And our practices were amazing. I mean, we had a full gym of spectators almost every practice watching us play. So going from competing against these guys then to competing against them in practice, but then getting out on the court on the same team, that was even more special.
Did Going in there now, I know. See, the one thing I really liked about you, even though you're a hard worker, you produced on every single level, but the one thing I really liked about Paul Davis was his humility. You were always humble with everything you did. Coming into your freshman year, you guys are playing Maryland, the defending national championship champions in the tournament, and Maurice Ager has the ball. Is there any idea in your mind? Do you know that the ball is coming to you at this point? It's 1 minute left in the game, and you guys are down 2 points. Do you know is there a play called for you in that situation?
I don't remember that specific play call. I remember the play, obviously, but I think at a time like that, especially being late in the game, we were obviously probably in the bonus, and I know Coach, as wanted something going towards the basket, so that was attacking, and it just kind of worked out. The play somewhat got broken down, and Maurice or Allen drove baseline and kicked it to me for the dunk, and then pretty much kind of the same exact play for the game-winning basket. So, we had so many offensive weapons that for another team it was tough. I mean, if one guy's driving, you have to step up and help. So that would leave the big guys on the baseline open for an easy bucket somewhat. So um, you know, I know it was going towards the basket. I guarantee you that's what the play call was, but we didn't know who was going to get it.
It was as a fan, I'm watching this game, and of course it's a 2 point game against the defending champions. They lost a little bit, but Tosh Holden's out there. You've been banging with him all day long. Maurice Sager drives baseline, they cut him off, he dumps it off to you, two-hand dunk over Tosh Holden, and it's exciting. So you think, okay, well, this is going to be a nail biter, and then they come right back down the next play, and he drives again and he gives it to you. You take two guys off the dribble, hit a bank off the window, and beat the defending national champion. Is that you're used to making big plays, but does that seem big to you? Like, was that really at the time? You're in the middle of the NCAA tournament, but did that seem like a big thing to you at the time?
No, no. I mean, you grow up watching the tournament, and then when you're out, when you're done, you're still watching it. You see these amazing plays and a lot of last second shots go in or don't go in, and careers or lives or college dreams are made or broken in that time, and you don't necessarily really realize it. I think we had 4 seconds left on the clock, so you had to kind of jump in and get back on defense. And a funny story about that game, I think we were kind of up most of the game, or up big. And as amazing as that feeling was and all that, when we got to the locker room, coach was kind of like, we lost the game because we almost gave it away.
Yeah.
And, first it's, especially when you're in the Sweet 16, you don't have a lot of time to celebrate that victory. I mean, even going back to when we beat Duke, the first and only time coach has beaten them, we don't have a lot of time to celebrate because we have to get ready for the next game. But, looking back, I mean, that's one of the couple video clips that's on YouTube. Back then, not as much stuff was taped as it is now. So it's amazing to look back and have that memory, not just for the team, but for myself.
You're taking all my good material, Paul. That you said the one and only time, and that is in fact, I think he's 1-12 or 1-13 against Coach K, and you guys were the ones that beat him. Is that something that you think about sometimes? Like, we're the only one in the history of Tom Izzo and this powerhouse program to beat Coach K.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I think myself and the guys I was with for those 4 years would kind of do some things differently. We wish we would have hung some more banners, and we were a couple possessions, from hanging a few championships, whether it be the Big Ten or Big Ten tournament. But having that, I guess, that little badge of honor that you were the group or the team that beat Duke under Hall of Fame coach the only time, and I think I was player of the game that game. These little things you remember that you don't think are big at the time, but once you're, I'm 11 years removed now. These things stay with you and stay with you for the rest of your life. And we love having that pride of being the only team, but we're ready for another team to join us. I mean, we were close this year, but I guarantee we meet them in the tournament this year. It's going to be a different story.
In 2002, when you're still in high school, I don't know. I played basketball in high school. I'm not really familiar with the process of how is the Mr. Basketball the award? How do they go about? Because I'm looking at your stats that year. You're 30 points a game, 14 rebounds and 4 blocks a game. So obviously you're dominating the entire season. But when you go out to play against other guys, do you feel like, okay, did they let you know before the end of the season, like, this is pretty much your trophy to win?
Well, going in, obviously, it's only rewarded to a senior. So, leading up to my senior year, it wasn't something I thought about or really knew exactly the, how great, how prestigious it was. But, as senior year started and, some media stuff starts picking up, and then you're getting closer and closer to the end of the season, and then there's a race. I mean, it was pretty much really between myself and Anthony Roberson going in, and then, I had broken my ankle, maybe with a few games left in the season, and I thought that might have kind of hurt my chances. So, the process is, I believe, when it's all said and done, as far as the regular season, that's when I got a phone call at home, and I think it's voted on by the coaches and by the media and maybe one other group. But I know that, it's like I said, looking back, these things are really, really prestigious. Your name's going to be on there with, Chris Webber, Dane Fife, all these great guys that you had mentioned, and, the guys before me. So it's an awesome thing, but you don't necessarily realize how big of a deal it is until, like I said, you're removed from it.
When you know what, I happen to find this. A friend of mine gave me a media guide for Michigan State covering basketball and football, and so I went through the information. And obviously, you are a Parade All-American and a McDonald's All-American, ranked in the top 50 all-time high school players in the state of Michigan. So if you think back to the Magic, George Gervin, Derek Coleman, Jalen Rose, Spencer Haywood, Mateen and Mo Pete, Charlie Bell, Steve Smith, Jay Vincent. Back in my time, the Judge, Antoine Jobert, Roy Marble, Trent Tucker, Greg Kelsler, and Paul Davis. When you think about your name in the groups of those guys right there, how does that make you feel?
It's kind of hard, like I said, even thinking going back before my time, but looking back now, just being when I graduated 15 16 years ago. Just in that time, even after me, the great guys that are on there, it's something that will never be taken away. All the hard work, the days in the gym, the nights in the gym, paid off, and you really realize everything that you've done and maybe everything you should have, could have, would have done back then. But I really enjoyed my high school career. That was when it was really in its purest form. There was no BS, no, it wasn't a business. It was just enjoying basketball. And so I obviously have to give a lot of credit to my teammates and coaches at the time. But yeah, it's one of those things that my kids and kids and grandkids, all that, will definitely be able to look back on. But being in the same sentence as some of those guys is still hard to believe.
So you're in your, I don't know exactly when your recruiting process started, but when is it about that Tom Izzo and Michigan State got on the radar? What year? Do you remember that?
Well, I originally I committed after my sophomore season, which is especially nowadays, very very early, and it's usually pretty early for coaches to offer scholarships to kids. I mean, now they're even going back to middle school. But growing up, I was always a North Carolina fan with whether it be Jordan or Vince Carter, Jerry Stackhouse. I love North Carolina, and as a kid wearing the gear and watching the games, ideally I wanted to go there and play there. But when it came down to it, this was right after MSU won the national championship. It's only an hour, 20 minutes from my home. My mom went there, and it still was the best decision. I was up at a team camp at Jenison playing for high school, and after one of the games, myself, Coach Izzo, and my father sat up in the grandstands at Jenison, and we were talking, and that's where he offered the scholarship, and it was a no-brainer for me. And I'm glad that I did that, not just because of how great the university is, but if I had to fly to North Carolina to come back, whenever I wanted to, that would be tough. But I love being able to come to all these events here, and we've got a real close knit group of former players that always comes back and supports the present team.
So, so was I know that the current players have a dislike for the University of Michigan. Was that an issue with you while you were growing up? Was Michigan ever on the radar for you at all?
No, never. I mean, we didn't have anything yellow or maize or blue in my house because my mom went there. We were always state fans, and so I was born hating Michigan, and still do. And tomorrow, myself, my family, a lot of guys are going to the game, so it's going to be a great day for Spartan basketball, I think. And I don't know, it's just one of those things. You respect them and you enjoy the rivalry. It's great for the players, it's great for the fans and the media. But we've kind of had a somewhat lopsided in the last 10 or 15 years on both sports, and so that's been great to watch.
And that's absolutely right. Now, okay, speaking of North Carolina, you're talking about you grew up being a North Carolina fan. 2005, Final Four. You guys go up against Rashad McCants, Sean May, that whole team. Now, a lot of people didn't have Michigan State picked to go to the Final Four that year. But, as I sat back and watched everything, I just knew that there was something special about you guys. You guys just like playing together and worked hard and everything. But what was it like being out there on that floor in that national semifinal game against, Raymond Felton and all the superstars that was on North Carolina's team?
Well, we had a tough road to get there, going through the first two rounds, but then especially Duke and Kentucky in Sweet 16 and Elite Eight. And I don't believe that beating Duke and Kentucky or a 1 and 2 seed to get to the Final Four has ever been done before in the tournament. So just that road to get there, we wanted to make sure that it would pay off, because that group of seniors that I was with, Calvin Torber, Alan Anderson, Chris Hill, Tim Gracchus, they have been through a lot coming after the Flintstones. So we wanted to make sure we sent them off right too. But leading up to that game, Alan Anderson got hurt in practice, and so he wasn't 100%. But stepping out on that floor, I mean, other than the NBA championship, and it might be even bigger than that because of all the fans that do a bracket. But it's an amazing atmosphere. It's absolutely unbelievable. You're playing in front of 80,000